and YouTube. Okay. Jen, you may need to make sure everything's good on YouTube. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. We have a very interesting talk for you today. It's really about talking about vitamin D, but we're also going to talk about a number of other things, which I think are also extremely relevant, particularly because of what's going on and on the coronavirus and the events that have taken place. So I really want to take a little bit of time to review many of the videos that I've done, a lot of the feedback I've gotten, and really putting this into a context. And then we're going to dive deep into science and really the power of vitamin D. And what I have set up is I have a lot of PowerPoint slides that we're going to walk through back and forth. But before I start that, I really want to share with you something many of you know, that I sent a letter to President Trump in order to effect change for both our immune health as well as our economic health. As many of you are aware, I've been extremely critical and transparent about what Anthony Fauci has been doing to really devastate our economy and essentially misleading the American public. Anthony Fauci is part of Big Pharma. He's been in the shadows of a quote-unquote expert advising many presidents. And what you see over time, which I'm going to discuss today, it's actually hurt the health of this country. And this gentleman really does not represent the American people. He actually represents what we're going to see, the deep state of people like Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, people like Hillary Clinton. And their intention is not the health of you, the American worker, the people. Their intention is in many ways monopoly and support of the big pharma model, which is actually desperately failing. And we're going to cover that. And what we'll also really focus on fundamentally is that what Fauci has really been about is really using this to drive economic policy in this country, which has had nothing to do with really supporting, the American people. And we're going to talk about that too. Someone just called me. Sorry about that. So let's begin. Before I start, one of the things I want to talk about is many of you know that I actually wrote a letter to the president, which you may have seen. Let me bring it up here. It's actually right up here. And it basically said immune and economic health for America. And it's a letter that I really lay out exposing to the president what needs to be done. It's all up there online on our website at Shiva for Senate. And it really provides the current trajectory that's been misled by Anthony Fauci. And then I go talk about a protocol that I'm proposing, which I'll talk about not simply quarantining everyone, but really giving a much more the concept of the right medicine for the right person at the right time, what's called personalized approach, where we have a set of people who are in group one, those people who who are testing positive for COVID-19, and how they should be essentially taken care of with supporting vitamin A and D. And then group two, those people who are critical, we support them with vitamin A and D, plus we also support them with IV vitamin C. And then group three protocol of those people who are immunocompromised, which we're going to discuss, and the third group, which are healthy adults. And the goal is really to get people back to work and really manage both the economic health as well as the immune health of people. Now, what I want to say that's very interesting and unfortunate is that if we go to my Twitter, if everyone's gone to Twitter, I tweet a lot, and I did this tweet which said, "Dear Mr. President, herein is my solution to restore the immune and economic health of America. The current one-size-fits-all policy based on a fake science of the immune system espoused by Dr. Fauci's destructive call me." Now, what's interesting is this has been up on Twitter, and I found out, if people should notice, if you click on this, it gives this unfortunate message where Twitter thinks they have the right to basically decide what is science from an MIT scientist, and you have to click continue, but this gives the impression as though something's wrong with our website. In fact, nothing's wrong. And then you have to click continue to go to the website. And what I want to say is, people talk about racism. And there is a racism in this country, and the Democratic quote-unquote Democrat liberal elite believe they're not racist, and the quote-unquote Republican establishment doesn't want to talk about racism. There is a real racism in this country, and you just witnessed it just here, of people deciding what types of medicine are right or wrong. For thousands of years, indigenous people of my background, have supported medical systems which were based on the sun, eating fruits and vegetables. That's what vitamin D is. Vitamin D is we're supposed to get it from the sun. And if you're telling everyone to stay inside and we work inside, you need vitamin D. Vitamin A comes from, the dark, leafy green and all the very colorful dark vegetables and fruits. And what I'm proposing here, Jack at Twitter, is a simple solution of vitamin A, D, and C. And I think it's really disgusting and unfortunate that people, it's not just against science, but it seems like an MIT PhD with 4 degrees is not promoting science when I actually have put forward a letter to the President of the United States. And if I go back here, this letter is essentially being assaulted by saying that it cannot be linked to my Twitter website. And so if you click on this really disgusting message says, warning, the link may be unsafe. And as I read through the Twitter policy, what it says is that someone may have reported for some reason. It's really disgusting, okay? And that is racist. It's not racist to use the N-word, in my opinion. I've been called that. It's not racist in many ways, if you don't support affirmative action. But this is racist because what I'm talking about, that I'm going to talk about today, is about what indigenous people for thousands of years, whether it be India, China, in this country, whether you're Celtic or you came from the old country, we've practiced, which is the sun, where you get vitamin D, eating fresh fruits. And this nonsense is total bullshit. I don't think he would do this to a white guy. And when I mean white guys, I don't mean white guys. I'm talking about the elites in this country who abuse everyday poor blacks, browns, white people, all of us. So when I talk about double quote white, I'm talking about the elites in Silicon Valley, the Bill Gateses, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Hillary Clintons, because I bet you they would never, ever, ever do this to them. And what I mean is the elites. So don't take this from a quote unquote race model of the old racist model. I'm talking about suppressing actual knowledge and the fact that my PhD, my 4 engineering degrees at MIT mean nothing to these criminals. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I had to get that off my chest. Let's go back to the lecture here. Unbelievable. Okay? So let's start here. What I want to talk about is the power of vitamin D. And what we're going to start doing, and what we need to do in this country, is we need to start destroying fake science. And the problem is that the academics at MIT, Harvard, Stanford, Yale, they're all prostitutes. They've all been sold out, and they won't even speak up on behalf of the American people. What's really good, though, is there are some medical doctors, surgeons, medical professionals with the constant videos I've been doing. I've been getting thousands of calls over the last 2 days, and it's been enormously gratifying. People from all over the country saying, Dr. Shiva, thank you so much for educating us. But one of the important things we need to understand is that in this country, the academic establishment has completely sold you and me out. They don't give a damn about anyone except their grant money and maintaining their tenured positions. That's why it's reprehensible. Not one of them has called out Fauci. And why is that? Because they all owe him and he controls them. But regardless, they don't have the balls, they don't have the conviction to stand up for truth. So that's what we need to do. And we need to move to citizen science. So what we're going to talk about here is, that's why the title of this is Destroying Fake Science Series. And I'm going to start doing a series of these going back to fundamentals of science. And today we're going to talk about the power of vitamin D. What I want to talk about, as I mentioned, is we're going to do a reality check. I'm going to let everyone know that the future of medicine is here. And one of the things people need to understand, that big pharma is actually dying. And Corona is their savior. We're going to take a systems approach to understanding medicine. We're going to, again, quickly review resilient immune systems, and then we're going to really focus on vitamin D, a proven immune buster, and what is the path forward. That's what we're going to do. So stay with me, and I know other people are joining, but the bottom line is all of this needs to be put into context. How we got here over the last 90 days and where we're going. And fundamentally, people need to wake up in this country that the medical establishment needs to be completely destroyed. They're destroying the health of our children, our youth, our future, our adults. And that's what this should show us, that we do need a state of emergency. And the state of emergency and the people who need to be quarantined are the medical establishment. And that's what we need. That's what I hope you realize out of today's lecture. And I hope you enjoy it, because I sure am going to. All right? So let's go here. So let's start here. So I want to give you a little bit of context. Some of you may know on January 6th and January 13th of 2020, I was one of the activists, a scientist activist, who went down to New Jersey and to give a scientific position, and we really got everyone excited. I was the one who said, look, if you want to fight the medical establishment, you really need to build a grassroots movement. The misleaders of this movement, who were the legislative pieces from Bobby Kennedy to talking heads like Del Bigtree, they used to fly in, but they never wanted an uncontrolled movement from bottoms up. So one of the important things that took place on January 6th and January 13th was that there was a uncontrollable movement that came from bottoms up. And I want to just let everyone know I was proud to really support that movement, grassroots, and I gave a very different direction versus trying to say that we should, pussyfoot around and suck up to the legislators. And what you can see, just look at the timing, January 6th and January 13th. What you see here is on January 13th, 2020 is about the time when the coronavirus comes out. Okay, quite extraordinary. Look at the timing here, and we see these cases, but this is when the New Jersey events take place. Let's look at a little bit closer what occurred on January 13th. Look what happened here. This is when the bill to end religious exemptions for vaccinations collapses in New Jersey. So what happened was, because of this groundswell movement that I was really inspiring and telling people to do, giving courage to people to rise up, not listen to sellout leaders like Bobby Kennedy, who were supporting people like Hillary Clinton, who's part of the Clinton Global Initiative, and essentially and he endorsed Hillary Clinton, who's Miss Vaccine Queen. I said we need to build a bottoms-up movement and separate from these misleaders. And the result of that, what you can see here, was very powerful, that because of that that vocal movement, the legislators in New Jersey decided not to push their bill forward, and it was a massive collapse. So look at that date, January 30th. Let me take you to the next date here. Now, on March 9th, this is about 90 days later, when I saw what was happening with coronavirus, I tweeted this out, and this really started the revolution that we're all being a part of while you're logging into this video, and the educational revolution that's taking place. So I said, as an MIT PhD in biological engineering who studies and does research nearly every day on the immune system, the coronavirus fear-mongering by the deep state will go down in history one of the biggest fraud to manipulate economies, suppress dissent, and push mandated vaccines. This tweet, I think, has been now seen by close to 2 to 3 million people. Rush Limbaugh picked it up. Many newspapers picked it up. So that's one of the most important things that occurred. The next thing that occurred was other newspapers. I doubled down on Anthony Fauci, and I said that he's part of the deep state, and I slammed on him really hard. Now, to summarize, let's look at what's really happening when we look at the statistics here. What you see here is that when you do the coronavirus comparison, this is a reality. There are 68,440 cases. This is up about 2 days ago. And the deaths are 994. This is, and the mortality is 1.45, okay? And then what you see here is on the right side, you see the regular flu is 38,023,000 deaths and about 0.06% mortality. And you see the total deaths, 68,000 and 46,000 from total deaths from drugs and opioid deaths. Today, or 2 days ago, I think this is just today, one of the things that's happened is that Anthony Fauci now, okay, so listen to this guy, Anthony Fauci, who in my view should be indicted for all of the stuff he's done in misleading science, misleading presidents and the American people. After I've hammered him really hard, exposing him, now Fauci is admitting, and you have to wonder what the context of this is. He's now admitting that Fauci, coronavirus death rate likely very bad flu, considerably less than 1%. This is something that just came out, okay? Just, I think, 24 hours ago. So put that in context and then look at this. In context of that, this just came out today saying New Jersey lawmakers believe pandemic could lead to passage of vaccine bill. Okay? So what you've seen here is a full cycle. In a 90-day period, the people of New Jersey, the families rose up in a model where we said, let's go rise up, not pussyfoot around with these legislators who are never going to do enough. And because of that fear, the bill was killed in New Jersey. Coronavirus comes up. Now with the pandemic, the New Jersey lawmakers believe the pandemic, let me show it again here, could lead to the passage of the vaccine bill. So this is the context that I want everyone to see with what's been going on in the last 90 days, okay? Is basically an imposition of vaccine mandates, just as I predicted about a couple of weeks ago. So let's go on to understand this. But I really want to educate people. In addition to the science, we also need to understand the political science of what's going on. Otherwise, we're always going to be like deer with headlights in our eyes. We won't know why these guys are doing something. So you need to understand contextually, there's been massive rise of dissent in this country and to fight for medical freedom. Coronavirus comes, okay, and now New Jersey, by way of example, where there was a significant victory by a mass movement of people rising up, is going to use the pandemic to now impose the vaccine bill. And this is a small microcosm of what they want to do globally. So let's go back here. So let's look here. So let me really talk about, put this again in context. You know, my life has really been dedicated to creating the future. You know, I built the first email system as a 14-year-old kid in a medical school when I converted the old interoffice mail system. I'm running for United States Senate today to really be able to solve problems as a scientist, as an inventor and educator. But one of the current businesses that I run, that to me, it's been a huge journey back to the future, in many ways coming back to myself, where I studied, you know, traditional systems of Indian medicine, came here, got my 4 degrees at MIT. But Cytosolve is one of the companies that I today run, which really focuses on using a systems approach to understand medicine. If you go to the website, it's really a platform for discovery, but it's such a part of everything I do. So what we're intended on doing at Cytosolve is really, let me go back here, is really revolutionizing the way that we do medicine. And what Cytosolve is to really discover the right medicine. To me, medicine begins with food, supplements, and therapeutics for the right person at the right time. And we've been using Cytosolve to really start exploring a lot of these nutrients relative to the immune system. And what we have done is really create a technology for modeling biological functions such as the immune system on the computer to discover medicines faster, cheaper, and safer while eliminating the need for animal testing. So that's one of the big goals here. So let's put all of this in context. What you'll see is that we need to understand that the pharmaceutical industry globally is dying. Let me repeat that. The pharmaceutical industry globally is dying, and they're looking for a way to survive. And the reason they're dying is that they are riding a medieval model of developing pharmaceutical drugs. And by the way, a drug is a synthetic drug that doesn't occur in nature. And in order to do that, as you see in this diagram here, they have to go through a long process. They have to actually test in a test tube. Then they go kill a bunch of animals. This takes 6 years. Then they have to get FDA approval before they do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 testing. They spend up to $50 billion. And by the way, the drugs coming out of here, you as a citizen have the right to sue them. You have the right to sue them if that drug harms you. Not true with vaccines. We'll come back to that. But the bottom line that I want you to take away with is many people are thinking that pharmaceutical companies are doing great. Or actually, when it comes to drugs, they're not doing well because this cost is really high and we can sue them. And what you see here, just to give you the real guts of this, the way that they are doing pharmaceutical development is like 100 years ago, the way we used to build airplanes. They come up with a design, throw a pilot in this case, it's an animal or a test tube, and if the plane crashes, they go, gee whiz, And if it doesn't, then they try to explain why it worked. So think about it this way. It's like someone going, hunting for something. They just fire a bunch of gunshot up there. Something falls down, and then they try to explain why. But this is a fundamental way that pharmaceutical development works. And if you talk to anyone, that's what they'll tell you. It's a very, very ad hoc science. So when you look at this, the reason this occurs, and again, people need to understand, is that the root cause of this, and this is why we need to understand the fake science. The fake science is taking place because the academics, many of them who are egomaniacal, people like Fauci, people who control other people's lives, the way that they do medical research, as you'll find out, is like the blind men touching the elephant. The elephant, consider, is a disease. The blind man is in the story of the blind man who's called, 6 blind men are called to touch the elephant by the king. And each one has a different view of reality. Some people think, one guy thinks that he touches a tusk, it's a spear. The guy who touches the trunk thinks it's a snake, and so on. And so, by and large, these guys, this is what, if they were ever to work together, they'd have an understanding of the elephant that looks nothing like the elephant. And if you really go deeper into what they're doing, their root cause for failure is because they really want power, profit, and control. And these are really the 6 elements on how they operate. And you need to understand this. One is they're insiders. It's a cabal of a finite set of people. You're in the cabal or you're not. Very secretive and siloed. They work in their little silos. Reductionist, this means they look at the parts. They don't look at the whole. They assume one size fits all, one medicine for everyone. And it's highly centralized. A few set of people are dictating it, a guy like Fauci, and a lot of censorship. What I mean by this is when you look at these 6 phenomenon, it's total control. It's not decentralized. It's really not a methodology to really have science, which is bottoms up, open freedom of speech, academic freedom. It's scientific consensus versus scientific debate, okay? Versus scientific method. So that's what you fundamentally have going on in the modern scientific community. And this is their result. When I say pharma is failing, year over year, they're putting more and more into R&D. And guess what? They're finding less and less new drugs, or less and less new drugs are even being allowed by the FDA. If you think the FDA is bad, they are not even allowing many of these drugs to go to market because of the safety issues, because of the side effects. And remember, the stuff that does come out, you have the right to sue them, unlike vaccines. But what you see here is the utter failure of pharma. They are failing big time. So this is something we need to understand. They are absolutely failing. So what are they going to do? Okay, what is their solution? And herein lies what we can understand of what's going on with the coronavirus. This is probably one of the most important things we need to understand on the background as we talk about why they are not promoting something so simple, so cost-effective, so safe as vitamin D. What is their solution? Why isn't Fauci, why isn't he or any of the CDC telling people, hey, let's give everyone vitamin A tests for our frontline medical workers, for our immunocompromised, for our elderly? What about vitamin D tests? Why aren't they doing that? What is their solution? So let's look at their solution. What is their solution before we go to our solution? This is their solution, okay? Their solution is to promote a utopia. This is their PR gig. So what I'm going to walk you through, you may have seen this before, but just to summarize, they have a solution. The first part of their solution is to completely promote through the fake media a fake solution and to make it look and to present it in a concept of something we all think we want, or their view of, as you're seeing here, a utopia. And by the way, this thing I'm sharing with you is written up. You can go read it. It's called the Sustainable Development Goals. You can, if you want to go Google it, 2015. And what it says is that we want no poverty, right? Zero hunger. You can go, quality education, gender equality, climate action, on and on and on. These are supposed to be the elements, and there's 17 of them that we all apparently want for utopia. Well, it sounds good, but who's really behind pushing this? Is it truly good intentions? What are the real intentions? And let's go through it and look at it. What we find here is that behind this utopia, their path to utopia, what is their path? It's actually global vaccination. It sounds quite amazing that this is this one-size-fits-all model. but they are presenting a utopia. That's the PR front. We want you to have all of this amazing stuff that looks like utopia. But the way we're going to get you there is through vaccinating everyone. And to just make it so real for you I just want to present you the documents here. This is out of the Immunization Agenda 2030, put out by the WHO and the UN. And what it says is, if you actually read it, the first page of it says, a world where everyone, everywhere, at every age, fully benefits from vaccines for good health. And it ends with saying to leave no one behind. So I just want people to look at that, to leave no one behind. This is their path to utopia. And if you read their sustainable goals, these are each of the goals. It says immunization is a key. So immunization is a key to protect people from being forced out of poverty. Immunization is a key to a productive workforce. Immunization is a key to the marginalized. Immunization is a key in this analysis for achieving utopia. So let me repeat again. They've set up a utopia, and then the way we're going to get there is through vaccines and immunization, okay? And why does this fit their narrative so much? And part of their narrative is to say there are hero countries which are achieving the SDG 3, Sweden, Denmark, France. And in fact, they herald up Denmark. And by way of example, just to point out, 1 week ago today, Denmark rushed through an emergency law which said Denmark's parliament on Thursday night unanimously passed an emergency coronavirus law which gives health authorities powers to force testing, treatment, and quarantine with the backing of the police. So just think about that. So you present a utopia, then after presenting that utopia, you then say vaccination is the only way to do it for everyone. And by the way, I'm not pro or anti-vax. It's a spectrum. All of us should be allowed freedom to decide what's right for us. But this says global vaccination. And if you can see, this country, which the UN, the WHO heralds as one of the top countries, is just passed a law to give authorities to force test, treatment, and quarantine. Okay? Who's behind this? Well, you find out from this recent press release, R&D-based pharmaceutical industry, which is IFPMA. It's the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers with WHO, which UN has been supporting this. As I shared in a previous talk, these are the executive body members of this, people from Eli Lilly, people from Shionogi, people from Roche. And you can see that they're all involved in the vaccine business. In fact, Roche got a huge surge in their stock price when it went up. And if you look at it, this is a 17% per year growth industry. So think about it. I don't think any of us are making any money off our savings account, 0% probably. But these guys are making 17% year over year. Today, it's around a $60 billion industry. And vaccines are expected to grow, but they're doubling every 6 years. And the driver of this growth is the increase of infectious diseases. And we're projected to be by 2026, 120 billion. And the global HPV vaccine, for example, reached 11 billion. So what you're seeing is that this is an amazingly profitable model for them, because for an industry that's actually failing. So just to make clear, everyone should understand that pharmaceutical is under massive regulation. You can sue them, etc. Vaccines, we can't sue the vaccine manufacturers. We have to go sue them in a U.S. government court where the limitation of liability, for example, to a child if he dies is only $250,000. So think about that. So very little liability, no risk, and in fact, much less testing and rigorous testing as they have to do with pharmaceutical drugs. This is what's motivating them. It's the almighty dollar, because pharma companies are flailing, okay? Vaccines are the savior of pharma companies, okay? Now, who are their saviors? Well, their saviors are, people like Chan Zuckerberg, initiative, okay? People like the Gates Foundation and people like Clinton Global Initiative. And by the way, you notice they all hang out together. And they have Fauci as their front man. Fauci has been in there, and I'll be doing another. Fauci's been in there literally for 40, 50 years. He's a guy who within the circles, he's known as Emperor Fauci, but he thinks he controls the entire country right now by putting fear in, by fear mongering. But this is what you see is fundamentally going on in this country right now, that you have these set of people who we never elected, who control billions of dollars in foundation money that should frankly be tax dollars, but they essentially do tax evasion, and this guy's their front man. So what's the solution? What is the solution really? for solving this. We've talked about the problem. We've probably put it in context for you. So what is the solution? And I don't want to make people feel homeless, because the reality is we have amazing solutions. We have simple solutions if we take a systems approach. So let's look at what the solution is. And obviously, I always like to give people theory. The solution really is truth, freedom, and health. We need to have freedom, open discourse, open debate. So if we want to know the whole elephant here, which is the whole disease or the whole problem, we need to start with freedom, because with freedom, we have the ability to fight, debate, and from that we get truth, and from truth we get health. And as I've covered before, these are the ways that we get to truth. Inclusivity, including as many people as possible. Transparency. Decentralization of knowledge development, which means it's not controlled by a few. Free speech. No censorship. We must take a systems approach, and any solution must be personalized. So just think about that. Inclusivity, transparency, decentralization, free speech, systems approach, and personalized. So many of you know that I'm running for U.S. Senate. And we give out these cards, by the way, at the stations, but you can see that my Senate campaign is not about a campaign who's a lawyer lobbyist. 60, 70% of these guys are lawyer lobbyists. My Senate campaign is really bringing to the fore what our founders are about, a guy who actually worked for a living like you, earned his degrees at MIT, worked his butt off, but grew up as an American kid. But in the back of our cards, when we distribute these, this is a contrast we're making. I'm running against 3 lawyers, 2 on the Democrat side. And if you see this is really the contrast that we have in 2020. Do we want lawyers and politicians, or do we want a scientist and inventor? Do we want a crumbling infrastructure, or do we want futurized infrastructure? Do we want corruption and racism, or do we want innovation and real diversity? Do we want debt and income inequality, or jobs and skills? Do we want skyrocketing healthcare costs, or do we want to remove middlemen? Do we want censorship and control, or do we want to value the Constitution? Do we want pollution, poison, and drugs, or do we want clean air, clean water, and clean food? Do we want mandated medicine, or do we want medical freedom? Do we want insiders running our country, or people like us who are agents of change? Do we want the past or the future? So that's really the focus. Part of the way we get there is a systems approach to medicine, which means we start looking at the whole elephant. We don't look at the parts, because those in power want us to look at the parts, okay? And when they look at the parts, they will always propose only one solution, which is quarantine, vaccinate. That's their solution to an immunocompromised citizenry. Quarantine, vaccinate. They don't want to talk about diet. They don't want to talk about food. They don't want to talk about supplements. They don't want to talk about clean air, clean water, and clean food. So what is a systems approach to medicine? What that says, and where it evolved from, was when the Genome Project ended, that we realized that we don't have 100,000 genes, which is what we thought when we went into it. We only have around 20,000 genes. And when this discovery took place in 2003 is when I went back to MIT, and what we realized was we need to take a systems approach to biology. That means to start, if we want to understand the whole body, it's not just genes, because genes are not who we are. Genes are not the things that always cause disease, but it's an interaction of food and the environment. This gave rise to a field called systems biology. I went back to MIT in 2003 because one of the big challenges was, imagine if we could use the computer to model all the chemical reactions. Well, how do vitamins work in our body? What actually occurs in the body without killing animals, which is what the typical models. Can we understand the dynamics? And that goal was, could you actually mathematically model molecular reactions on the human cell on the computer, where you see the cell as a big interconnection of molecular reactions? And by the way, this is one of these molecular pathways, and these are becoming converted to models. And if we could do this, that means we could use the computer to really understand phenomenon without shooting in the dark. Remember what I said, pharma companies, guy finds out something, they raise $40 million, do test tube testing, kill a bunch of animals. It's literally shooting in the dark. This says, can we move into the future and to take a much more powerful approach? So that's what resulted in my latest invention, Cytosolve, as big as email or bigger, I'm hoping, where we could really take the cell, understand it as an individual collection of molecular pathways, and use the computer to really solve diseases. And this was one of the first papers I wrote. And what this allows us to do is, because a current pharma model is a failed model. This is like a locomotive moving to its own death. And in fact, that's where it's moving. The pharmaceutical companies are moving to their own death because they're living in the medieval world, just like Fauci. And what you see here is that this new approach is really the future, where we look at the old research, we mine it, we build a systems level understanding of a disease so we can test compounds. And that's where this technology comes in. And it's as revolutionary as technology that was created when we built airplanes. We didn't simply throw a pilot in to kill them. We actually understood what was going on the computer, and then we went and built airplanes. And we've created this whole way of enabling truth, freedom, and health by really building what we call a collaborative way to do science. So when I'm going to share with you this vitamin D work, we have the ability to look at the richness of papers that have been written, mine them, organize them. So we're not just looking at one little paper. And with this capability, we have the ability to look at all the papers, mine those papers, understand the mechanisms, and come to a much more of a holistic conclusion. A quick example of the fun use of this. Here's when I grew up in India, people used to mix these medicines to understand what was going on in your body. Well, if you asked them how you did it, it was a lot of hand waving. But with this technology, some of you may know curcumin, which is the active ingredient in turmeric, reduces inflammation. So here we have mined nearly many thousands of papers to understand all the way curcumin, which is the active ingredient in curry. Curry's, by the way, that yellow stuff that's in the curry powder, how that interacts at the molecular level, and we can mathematically model it. Similarly, what happens when you take resveratrol. And what we're able to do with this technology is really combine them and see what happens on the computer before you go hurt animals. So the far right column here, we're looking at, just look at these numbers, 0.15, 0.05, 0.06, 0.03. In the first case, no curcumin, no resveratrol. I'm using the computer. I have inflammation. That number 0.15 represents high inflammation. Next case, I reduce. I just give curcumin. And you notice this 0.15 goes to 0.05, which means I reduce inflammation. I just give resveratrol alone. And you notice it goes down from 0.15 to 0.06. And here I'm doing a combination. But look, 40% less curcumin, 60% less resveratrol, and look at the inflammation goes down even further, what you see here. So we're able to use this technology to really understand combinations. So there you go. So their approach, if you really look at over the last 40 years, what is the state of health in the United States? So I want to take a quick break and really talk about their model has been pharmaceuticals, pharmaceuticals, pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals, 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 vaccination, 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 invasive surgeries. Very little is ever discussed. And frankly, doctors don't learn really how the immune system works. And this is not their fault. A lot of good doctors out there, if you're listening. It is the entire medical education model, which really is pharmaceutical-based medicine. And what you really have is that the doctors really don't learn nutrition. They don't. It's not really taught in medical school. It's not front and center. Remember, Hippocrates, the father of medicine, said food is medicine. So what you see here is, let's look at the data. What have they delivered? What has people like Fauci delivered to us? The United States has the highest infant mortality rate. Highest infant mortality rate. Take that one statistic. These are actual data. Second, we have the lowest, by the way, this is in the developed nations, to be clear, in the Western world, we have the highest infant mortality rate. We have the lowest longevity rate. Okay? This is what the medical establishment has delivered. The lowest longevity rate. And this is how they've delivered it. The highest in US healthcare spending out of all the Western countries. 16%, 17% of our national economy is going to healthcare, and this is what they've delivered. The highest, the lowest longevity rate, the lowest infant mortality. It even gets worse. This is what's happening relative to obesity. You know, people actually, what's unfortunate is we have a delusion taking place that we used, before at least people knew that, had a sense that they were overweight. Now we have from 48% to 36% people think they're not overweight, when in fact, people who are overweight and obese has gone from 56% to 70% in this country. 30% are severely obese. When you look at obesity in the United States and diabetes, you see that we're spending about $327 billion. Diabetes rates are skyrocketing. We're 15% of the US population will be diabetic. Today, we have around 34 million people. At this rate, we're going to hit 45 million people. And by the way, this is also a global trend. We're looking at 700 million people globally. The next thing is you also notice depression among our youth is rising. It's almost doubling from what it was in 2008. Nearly 16, a doubling of that number of people in the age of 18 to 25 and 12 to 17 years old are feeling depressed. The next set of statistics really speaks to what is going on with medical interventions. So we are told, go to hospitals, take pharmaceutical drugs. The average 82-year-old is on 12 different drugs. What do we see here? Well, we see that the third leading cause of death in the United States, nearly 440,000 per year, the third leading cause of death behind heart disease and cancer is medical errors in the hospital. That's what we see. Third leading cause of death is 440,000 deaths per year from medical errors. Now, if you combine this with this next data, which is prescription drugs, fourth leading cause of death, okay? And what you see here, this number is actually wrong. It's about 180. It's actually about 100. It's about 128,000. But regardless, what you see here, this is a paper that just came out. Prescription drugs kill us in large numbers, and this is what it says. Few know that systematic reviews of hospital charts have found that even properly prescribed drugs, aside from misprescribing, overdosing, cause about 1.9 million hospitalizations a year. Another 840,000 hospitalized patients are given drugs that cause serious adverse reactions for a total of 2.74 million adverse reactions and about 128,000 deaths. This is from Harvard University. Few people know that new prescription drugs have 1 in 5 chance of causing serious reactions. The reason I wanted to bring this up as I lead into the vitamin D stuff is that people are asking, oh my God, can I overdose? Can I overdose? Yes, you have to be careful. However, the risk there is so low compared to what we're talking about prescription drugs. And the medical establishment, part of their fear mongering is to really highlight that. And we'll come back to that. But I wanted to share this with you to really give you the state of the modern medical establishment. It's not that great. They don't have a lot to really ride on. So if you really look at the healthcare errors, then it's really the number one cause of death. If you look at medical errors plus prescription drugs, we're at least at 620,000 deaths, 1.9 million hospitalizations, heart disease is 590,000, cancer is 574,000. So just think about that. 17% of our GDP goes into this medical establishment, and they're delivering medical errors and prescription drug failures, and 1.9 million people get hospitalized. I don't see Fauci talking about this as a medical emergency. All right, so let's now talk about, just to wrap this up, this is coronavirus, this is a regular flu, and we've just gone over the statistics of the devastating way in which the medical establishment is hurting our health. So let's go to vitamin D. If you remember, we reviewed last time that the model of the immune system that was used to develop vaccines was just a 2-compartment model, which involved the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system. Remember, simply, the innate immune system is everything that touches the atmosphere, your eyes, your nose, your respiratory, everything that comes in contact with the outside world. And this is where we have macrophages, neutrophils, these substances which attempt to be the first line of attack to take care of the virus or the pathogen or the bacteria. The second line of defense in this 2-box model, which is frankly a 100 to 150-year-old model of the immune system, is the adaptive immune system. The adaptive immune system are those things that are the sharpshooters that kick in to create antibodies, okay? So that's the adaptive immune system. But this 2-box model that I shared with you is not the whole picture. However, this 2-box model, it is what is still taught in medical schools today. It is still what the MD unfortunately learns, that you have the innate and the adaptive, and that's it. And based on that, vaccines were created as the only medical intervention that is a solution to your immune health. However, what we do know is something far more powerful. This is based on a lecture I gave at the National Science Foundation. The immune system is far more complex. And by the way, this was a result of our work with Cytosolve, our technology. What you realize is we have the innate, the adaptive, we have the interferon system, which is a whole nother part of our immune system, which really waits for viruses. The interferon system is empowered by viruses, believe it or not. It gets stronger the more viruses that it comes across. And then we also have the microbiome, the virome, and the neural system. And all of this is an interconnected system. Why am I sharing this with you? Is because if you want to understand vitamin D and vitamin A and vitamin C, vitamin D and vitamin A are actually hormones. They go affect multiple subsystems of this. Well, what is vitamin D? To keep it simply, go back to indigenous cultures. Vitamin D is the sun. Okay? And what is vitamin A? Well, vitamin A is all those, as I keep saying, those dark leafy vegetables and fruits that if we consume them in the sun, that is what really powers our immune system, throughout our body. So if you go here, we've talked about this. Let's remember that this immune system consists of 6 trillion human cells. So you are not just you. You're about 6 trillion human cells, but you have 60 trillion bacteria, 380 trillion viruses inside of you, and a small number of fungi. So that's why I said you have the microbiome, which is those bacteria, and the virome. So when people scare the hell out of you, viruses, you know what? They're part of our family. And we have trillions of viruses around us, all around us, and we came out of viruses. We came out of the microbiome. And we have learned how to live with that. So the first thing I want you to take away is this fear of viruses and bacteria. This is a fear that the CDC and people like Fauci have asserted because it serves a much deeper their interest, to manipulate narratives and to promote fear. So this is science, by the way. This is not fake science that people like Fauci and the CDC thrive on. So what you see here, this is a reality, and you may want to take a screenshot of this, is that viruses do not harm or kill us. Let me repeat this. So medical professionals seeing this, nurses who I know you're under a massive amount of stress right now, is that it's not the viruses that harm or kill us. It's the overreaction from a weakened and dysfunctional immune system to the virus results in your own body, our own bodies, attacking its own cells, tissues, and organs, resulting in harm and death. Okay? It's a dysfunctional immune system, and such a dysfunctional immune system is a result of underlying pre-existing conditions. So what really is going on is these viruses are there. In the normal case, a virus hits you, your innate system kicks in, your IFN, your microbiome, and you take care of it. You don't even know about it. But for those people who are immunocompromised and whose immune systems are weakened, what happens is you have, let's say, 3 cylinders you're supposed to run on, 2 cylinders are down. Let's say you're innate and you're adaptive, your macrophages and your T cells. Well, one thing has to carry the load, and it overreacts. And that overreaction results in it's called cytokines, cytokines. They not only attack the virus, but they also start attacking your tissues. And that is differentially expressed, which means it occurs in different ways. Sometimes in the case of if your body's trying to take out the Ebola virus, it also goes and attacks your arterial endothelial cells, and you start bleeding from inside. But it's you attacking you. Okay? In the case of coronaviruses or flus, or what are called acute respiratory infections, your own body starts attacking the alveoli structures in your lungs, and you start having lung and acute respiratory failure. But please, do not be BS'd anymore with the fake science that the virus is attacking you. The average medical student, the average medical professional, their view, and that's how they scare you, is that the virus is some big Godzilla. And that Godzilla is coming and eating parts of your body, and the virus is like a linebacker. The vaccine is a linebacker blocking it. It's absolutely BS. What's really happening is a virus is coming in, your immune system is compromised, your immune system overreacts, and that overreaction starts attacking your own body. Okay? So that's what you want to really understand to understand vitamin D here. So, such a dysfunctional immune system is a result of underlying preconditions. What do we mean? Obesity, diabetes, heart disease, smoking, immunocompromised. Okay? So what did I just share with you? What I shared with you is the medical establishment is the one who has created immunocompromised people. I repeat, this is the time while we're sitting at home to reflect on why we're in this situation. It's because of this medical establishment, which is destroying the health of you, your children, and their children's children. Dirty air, dirty water, dirty food. They don't want to talk about that. The politicians don't want to talk about that. They love imposing quarantines because this serves another agenda. They can mandate vaccines on us. They can next year. Don't be shocked if you can't get your driver's license, if you can't walk around and people are so scared that you can't go into the gym and all this, that you all have to be vaccinated. That's what this is about. This is a precursor to scaring the hell out of us, shutting us down, making us print $6 trillion, by the way, in money. This is what the deep state wants. So then next year, 7.2 billion people will have to spend, let's say, $1,000 a piece to be force vaccinated, or you can't move. $7 trillion per year. That's what's going on. So people need to wake up to what is actually going on and stop living in this fear that, they're going to die of some disease all day long. Okay? You're going to die not because of a virus. You're going to die because of being immunocompromised. And you got immunocompromised because of these horrible lawyer lobbyists who you keep electing. You got immunocompromised because the medical establishment and the pharmaceutical industry and the entire way that we treat the body is not about strengthening the immune system. Okay? That's how we got here. And we should call a state of emergency on that. So this is what the immune system reality is. So when you age, the reason I said it was so reprehensible is our aging population, our immunocompromised. If Anthony Fauci, if the medical establishment really cared. By the way, I've gotten calls from many doctors saying that in hospitals, the total bean counters, the quote-unquote lawyer lobbyists who run these hospitals, are mandating to their doctors and their nurses how to take care of their patients when they know it's not correct in their gut. Okay? So why don't these people start giving our elderly, our medical care workers, our frontline workers, our immunocompromised, vitamin A and vitamin D. Pennies, pennies, pennies. And if they think they're so dangerous, do a simple test, okay? Do a simple test on the vitamin D levels, vitamin A, and you're going to see that vitamin A and D and C and iodine have been researched enormous. Massive numbers of tests have been done, far more than what they've done for vaccines. Now, when we go to our elderly people, this is why they get immunosuppressed, because when they age, look very carefully, their thyroid level goes down as we age, so you have less vitamin A. Well, why is vitamin A important? See these cells here, these beautiful green cells? See these nice little red structures? Well, these things are what protect your cells from the viruses even getting in. This is called cytokeratins. Vitamin A is involved in creating those cytokeratins. And when you have less vitamin A, you produce less cytokeratins, you get scarring of your own epithelial tissues, you get reduced innate immune function, which means less macrophage activity, you get reduced adaptive immune function, less T cell activity. This is what happens when we age. Simple solution. Let's get some vitamin A in. So if these medical establishment really cared, it is reprehensible, it's freaking criminal that they're not even at CVS, Walgreens. Why don't they offer vitamin A and vitamin D tests? They don't want to do that. They're telling everyone to go inside and hide and wait for the cure-all vaccine from whoever, from Bill Gates's, from Mark Zuckerberg, from Hillary Clinton's little cabal. When you also age, your HCl levels go down. Your hydrochloric acid level goes down. What does that mean? Well, hydrochloric acid, your phyllis likes acid, which means your acidophilus levels in your lower gut will be lowered. Your microbiome gets disrupted. So what I'm talking about here is as you age, your thyroid level goes down, vitamin A goes down, and you start breaking these amazing barriers, or you lower your defenses so viruses can get into your cells. Take some vitamin A, okay? That's what I put in my proposed protocol to the President of the United States, which Twitter takes down, but they won't take down vaccine stuff which has not been tested. Then the other thing is we need to support our microbiome. That's what we can do by supporting our gut acid levels, okay? That's the next thing is we have immunosuppression because of the high sugar diet. High sugar, candida grows. When candida grows, you have gliotoxins that start growing, and those destroy macrophages and T cells. Macrophages are really in your innate system, and T cells in your adaptive, and your innate and adaptive systems drop. Now, normal, healthy individuals, the innate immune system will take care of the pathogen, and in unhealthy individuals, the innate immune system is not able to take care of it, And that's why you have the cytokine storm. So as I mentioned, in something like Ebola, your own body will attack the arterial endothelial. You start bleeding out. And in the case of like coronavirus, you start attacking your own lungs. Okay? So last time I also talked about, what I just reviewed was vitamin A. Let's go to vitamin D. Okay? Everyone's been waiting for this, but I needed to give you that background because I know there's a lot of new people that are joining us. So you've basically caught up. You've understood the political context. You've understood the fact why I'm so involved medically and politically now, because you can't really hide anymore. We all have to get involved. This can't be given to lawyer lobbyists or the likes of Fauci or the CDC, because the medical establishment basically is destroying our health, and they need to be destroyed. So let's talk about vitamin D. Well, vitamin D, first of all, I want to thank everyone before I go into it for all your amazing comments, all your questions. We've had a lot of our volunteers for our campaign, for example, as they posted this, some medical care workers are saying, what do I do now? They're under massive amounts of fear, the nurses, the frontline people. So I want to really dedicate this part of the talk to the seniors, the immunocompromised, and the frontline medical workers. And any one of you who know these people, please share this knowledge with them, because the medical establishment is not doing this. What they're doing is scaring the bejesus out of them to meet their end goals. So let's talk about this here. What is vitamin D? First of all, vitamin D is a molecule. It's actually a hormone. There's a little picture of it down here. And first of all, there's 84,378 papers. If you just type in vitamin D in PubMed, as of a couple of hours ago, there's 1,000+ systematic reviews. 1,000+ systematic reviews. What that means is a systematic review is where people actually take a field. Oh, how does vitamin D affect, muscle growth? How does vitamin D affect, depression? And they take all the papers and they do what's called a systematic review. So the reason I thought this number was quite interesting is there's been over close to 1,000, types of systematic reviews. That's a lot. So this is a very, very well-researched, ingredient. So anyone who wants to say, well, this is not proven, well, you need to ask them a lot of questions about what they consider proof, because then you have to expose drugs and vaccines, etc., if they want to be on par. Lots of review, lots of research. And there's in fact been 9 systematic reviews on vitamin D on acute respiratory infections. In fact, the latest review was done in 2017, about 2.5 years ago. And this review was done involving 24 institutions in 12 countries, 11,000 participants. So what I want to share with you is the most recent systematic review, which means looking at what everything's been done over the last... Hey, Michelle? I need you to restart this because I'm going to lose Instagram in about an hour. Guys on Instagram, when this ends, I'm going to have to start you again. Jen, will that be okay if I start and stop it? Jennifer?
Yep.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay, it'll start and it'll stop again. Okay. It's okay. Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks. So one of the things is that a lot of research has been done. It's not the battery, Michelle. It's the time remaining. Okay, it's okay. Yeah. In this systematic review, we're looking at 11,000 plus participants. This is not 5 people. This is not 10 people. 11,000 participants. And what this systematic review, which is looking at hundreds and thousands of papers, and remember, this systematic review was done on the value of vitamin D, listen very carefully, to acute respiratory infections. Acute respiratory infections, be it caused by SARS, be it caused by MERS, be it caused by corona. Acute respiratory infections. And what this study found out, only 2 years old, is that vitamin D supplementation was safe. Number 1, protected against acute respiratory tract infections. 2, 3, let me bring this up so you can follow. 3, what you see is it supported, really affected in a positive way, survival of people in the ICU. 4, the greatest benefits came to those deficient. And the other thing it identified, which I want to share with you, is that there were multiple mechanisms of action. that promote the effect of antimicrobial peptides. What I'm going to do just very quickly is, because Instagram just ended here, so I'm going to share this story and I'm going to start it up again. 1 second, and we'll start it up here. And I got to go here. I'm going to start the live. Jen, I started the live again, okay? Jen? I started the live again on Instagram, okay? All right. So what you see here is that to people on Instagram, if you're coming back, just wait. Oops, I got to hit live. I'm sorry. So people on Instagram, I just started again. Sorry about that. There's a limit on how much it starts. Sorry. So what you see here is that the way that vitamin D works, it actually promotes the creation of antimicrobial peptides. And that's what I want you to understand. We're going to go through the science of that. So when someone asks you, well, vitamin D has no effect, what we've done is we've really gone through the research and we have started using cytosol to aggregate. But one of the most, when you look at all the possible things, the system that I want to go over is when you ingest vitamin D, what it does, it's a juice for your body to actually create what are called antimicrobial peptides. And vitamin D enables antimicrobial activity in your macrophages. And your macrophages are all throughout your innate immune system, particularly in the respiratory tract. So we're talking about acute respiratory infection. So vitamin D, by the way, it helps many different areas, okay? But what I really wanted to focus on is how it mechanistically supports this. So let's look at that. So what you see here is, by the way, we are going to take questions. Jen, you're going to help me with that, right? Jennifer? Yep. So what we're going to do is I'm going to now, so listen very carefully because we've gone through a number of things, but what we're really going to talk about is in the innate and adaptive immune system. Remember, you have multiple subsystems, but the innate immune system is the one that rapidly responds, right? So when you remember if you ever feel that scratchy throat, you're feeling bad. By the way, if you're starting to feel that, that's the time to hit and support your body. Very good, and I have my own recommendations that I do, I'll talk about later. But in this case, the innate immune system, as you see here, has all these amazing military folks, okay? It's got macrophages, it's got natural killer cells, it's got neutrophils, all these things. We're going to really focus on the macrophages. The adaptive has the things that create the antibodies, okay? But these macrophages are really your first line of defense. You get hit with, someone sneezes on you, right? Well, these macrophages are ready to go to war for you, but you need to give them the right fuel. And this is where vitamin D is important. So let's walk through this. So if you look here, what you see here is you have these macrophages. By the way, if you look at let me go here. If you look here, as I mentioned here, we have the macrophages here, right here. Macrophages here, all these different kinds of cells. We're looking at the innate immune system. We're looking at the respiratory system, your nasal cavity, as it comes down, through your trachea, through your left lung, to your left bronchus. But here I'm looking at a zoomed in picture, if you look right here, of what's called your alveoli. These are the little sacs where all the transfer of oxygen and blood takes place. And to get a little more detailed, if you think about when you breathe in, as looked at by the red, and you breathe out as the yellow. So when you breathe in, literally in those alveoli sacs, oxygen comes in. Here is blood coming in, which is non-oxygenated. The CO2 leaves, and then the capillaries here interact with the alveoli, and O2 is given. So this is a very powerful, very beautiful way that nature works. You're giving your body, you're removing CO2, and you're giving your body oxygen, okay? This is occurring within here. Now, if you go a little bit deeper, when a virus comes into your lungs, so someone sneezes on you, okay? Someone, coughs on you. Well, what I'm here to tell you is if your immune system is functioning properly, no big deal, okay? It really isn't. But if your immune system is compromised, then you're going to have a problem. And we're going to walk through how that can occur and the influence of vitamin D. So here, what you see here, virus comes in. Let's look a little bit closer. Now, we have to understand that the protection of the airway epithelium from pathogens. So epithelial cells, really, so those are the cells right here. Let me show you right here. These are the, so here is your your airway that's coming into each one of these alveoli. The epithelial really surrounds the edge, these epithelial cells. So what I'm saying here is when you go here, the epithelial cells form the physical barrier against pathogens, okay? And the airway epithelium actively contributes to the immunity. And in macrophages, the secretion of these peptides takes place. And in particular, what I'm going to focus on is CAMPs. And I'm not talking about going on camp, but it's called catalycidins. Big word, but catalycidins, antimicrobial proteins are critical to antimicrobial activity, and vitamin D is essential to create these CAMPs, okay? So what happens here? Well, here is your alveoli, and you have these macrophages here, okay? These are your military tanks, which are here to go take out these little guys you see here, which are the viruses or bacteria or fungi, okay? They can handle many things. But let's just zoom in on one of the macrophages. By the way, there's two types of macrophages that you have. Your body really uses the immune system sometimes for inflammatory response and sometimes for anti-inflammatory response. So in the case of macrophages, you really have two types of macrophages. You have the pro-inflammatory and the anti-inflammatory. The pro-inflammatory guys are the ones who have antimicrobial properties, and they're the ones who are really involved in taking vitamin D as fuel and really supporting this antimicrobial behavior. So we're really going to focus on these. So when we look at this, what you want to understand is that the vitamin D comes in, and we're going to walk through how the macrophages take that vitamin D, create the catalycidins, the antimicrobial proteins, which are then used to support antimicrobial activity. So what you want to see here is the antimicrobial peptides or catalycidins are evolutionarily conserved across multiple species. So what this really means is these molecules have been around for billions of years. And if you don't want to believe in evolution and you believe in natural design, and you believe God gave it to us, wonderful. You can believe that approach or the science approach. But regardless, what we know is that the catalycidins have been conserved through many species, and they're the oldest mechanisms of action towards microbial pathogens. The oldest mechanism, okay? And they involve pathogen cell wall membrane disruption of bacteria and viruses. So what that means is these catalycidins have been around for a long, long time. And they have been the oldest mechanism that our body has used to fight microbes, bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Okay? So now let's go a little bit deeper. And what we see here is that I'm going to walk you through this. It's going to seem complicated, but I'm going to make it easy for you. By the way, I'm going to walk you through two diagrams. As I mentioned to you, our technology Cytosolve really allows us to take this ball and stick diagrams and convert it to actually things we can run on the computer. But what you see here is, just to start here, what you see here is this thing that says 25D3. That is the vitamin D3 that you consume, okay? You take that into your body. This line here and all the stuff in the gray is a macrophage. So everything outside here in the white, think about it as your airway. The virus, for example, I have an HIV virus coming in, okay? Could be any virus. But you take D3 into the macrophage, and what the macrophages do is they take the D3 in, and through a series of chemical reactions, they create a usable form of D3. Okay, so you're consuming D3, like cholecalciferol, and your body converts that to a form of D3 through that's this first part here. So your body makes it into a form that it can make bioavailable, and then it uses that through another set of reactions interacting with the nucleus, and I'll come back to this, to create these little objects, molecules called SAMPs, the catalycidins antimicrobial peptides, CAMPs. So vitamin D is here, and what do you get? Voila, you get catalycidins, okay? these catalysedins, so this is the first part of the reaction, but these catalysedins are extremely important. So for example, when a virus comes in, your body is able to use these phagosomes to envelop it, but this reaction, which is called the autophagosome, by these CAMPs, is used to catalyze, which means really inspire this fusion taking place right here. And this process really leads to autolysosome activity, where your lysosomes are able to merge with this and to create the antimicrobial activity. My point is that without vitamin D3 here, it's very, very difficult for your body to make CAMPs. One could argue that it's nearly impossible. So the issue is you consume vitamin D3. Well, you can get it from the sun, right? But if you can't get it, and we're all quarantined inside, which is quite fascinating, we're told to go inside, not go outside. And because of that, and no one is telling us to take vitamin D, but if you do take the vitamin D3, your body, through a series of reactions, will create these catalysedin antimicrobial peptides, which your body then uses through this process of these lysosomes, as I'm sharing here, to literally create the powerhouse for it to go digest and disrupt the viruses. Another way of looking at it, I've drawn another diagram, because we're getting ready using our technology to not only, we've aggregated all this knowledge from all these papers, we're actually putting it into our engine, and we can also help people personalize this. It's another whole thing, but my point is, this is really medicine, and the future of medicine is here, that we really look at holistically what's going on across all that research. Here's another way of looking at it, where the vitamin D, so this little brownish tan area is the macrophage. This is the vitamin D3 coming in. And as you can see, the vitamin D3 is processed. This is a nuclear membrane, and the vitamin D3 hits a receptor on the nuclear membrane, which then leads to the creation of the catalysedin messenger RNA, which then leads to this antimicrobial activity. Put it simply, what vitamin D, your body is waiting for vitamin D3. It wants it. If you have deficiency in this, what happens? You don't produce enough of the catalysedins. It's that simple. So in order for you to have antimicrobial activity, by the way, this is not just for viruses, we're also talking about bacteria and fungi. So there you go. You can look at that. And in closing, before we go to questions, vitamin D deficiency leads to weakened immune systems. Vitamin D is essential to create those CAMPs, and vitamin D there's a bunch of sources, right? You can get it from sunlight, which would be ideal. This is why dietary supplements could be very valuable. The fatty fish, I just had salmon today, for example, sardines, the cod liver oil. And just to give you an idea that vitamin D, people, relative to what we look at vaccines, it's about a $1.7 billion industry by 2025, and it's growing at about 7%, compared once again to the saviors of failing pharma who want to promote vaccines. This is growing at around doubling. It's 60 billion. It's going to go up to 120 billion, and that's where we're at. So these are our saviors, and look at them very carefully, because these are the guys who want to ensure that we create an environment that we continue promoting the medical establishment. 17%, 20% of our GDP spent on them. 15, 17% of our people are going to be diabetic, immunocompromised. I don't see any state of emergency for that. I don't see quarantines for that. What we do see is this very unfortunate human being, Fauci, who's gotten away with promoting a very false narrative. Either he's dumb or he's ignorant. I'm not sure that he doesn't understand, which I don't think he does, but he is literally part of this club. And that club doesn't include you and me. Let's take some questions. Jen, do we have any questions we can take? I'm going to look at what I have here. And let's see what I have coming in here. Jen, you want to give me some questions, if we have any?
Well, on Facebook, a bunch of people are asking the difference between the vitamin D and the D3, so if you could just clarify on that.
Yeah, so look, molecules have different structure. D3 is the most bioavailable form. That's really what is highly recommended. It's structurally different chemically, but D3 is the most bioavailable one. Years ago, the supplements used to use D2, which is calciferol. You want to take, D3. Okay? Next, Jen. I'm looking at any questions. Shiva, vitamin D3 with K2. Yeah, great question. Should you take vitamin D3 with K2? Look, one of the things I want to say at the outset, normal people, everyday people, whether you grew up Italian culture, Irish culture, Indian, all of us grew up as working class people working outside. Ideally, you don't need to take these supplements. Get it from the sun. But the reality is we all work inside, and now we're all quarantined. Okay? In the ideal case, you should go have your vitamin D levels checked. And if you're going to take the supplement, people say you should balance it with vitamin K. However, what I try to do, for example, I just had a big bowl of collard greens today. Okay? The yams, the purple yams. So if you're going to do the D3 supplementation and you can't get it from the sun, the next best thing to balance that with is a dark green leafy vegetables, the tubers, the very dark fruits. Now, if you can't get that, yeah, you can add the K2. My intention here is to keep it simple, stupid principle, the KISS principle. There's many other things you could layer on, but remember, not all of us, can fly around in our jets and private jets like these people. Okay, we want to find a solution that's potent, that's reasonable, that's cost effective for working people, which is what most of us are. Next question is, take ester C, NAC, and NO. Sure, all of these things are very, very good. Vitamin C, I'm going to give a next talk on it, but vitamin C is obviously a proven support system for the immune system. Using it in IV in the ICU has been done for many, many decades. So if you look at the thing that I wrote to the president to recommend is, first of all, we take the people who have COVID-19, who are tested positive, give them a super high dosage, 400,000 IUs of vitamin A, 2 days, only 2 days, and then vitamin D, 50,000 IUs for 2 days, okay? That's for people who have tested positive. And by the way, the dosages I just said, for example, the vitamin A, that's a pediatric dose. That's also been done in the literature, all right? So when an MD comes and says, whoa, we don't know about this, well, it's been done. Maybe he should catch up on his research if he hasn't done that versus just being a robot and following the physician's desk reference. But again, no hurtful comments to the MDs. A lot of good people. It's been their medical training. For the people, like everyday people, what I've also proposed, and I'll bring this back up in the document that I put forward back here, in the letter I wrote to the president, you can see it right here. I'll bring it right up here, is for the healthy adults, right, in what I call group 4, children, again, this is my opinion. I've done the research, and by the way, all of this comes from existing literature. It's an aggregation of it. People, if you want medical advice, seek the advice of your doctor, do your own research. But in this solution that I sent to the president, which I've made accessible because I want to let people know that we want solutions, is about 1,000 IUs for vitamin A. This is for children. This is maintenance, 2,000 vitamin D per day ongoing, 250 milligrams of vitamin C per day, and iodine, and iodide. By the way, you just don't want the iodine. You want iodine and iodide together, okay? And by the way, I want to thank Roby Mitchell, one of the MDs, and Roby and I are starting to pull together other MDs. We've created an email, Corona, C-O-R-O-N-A, at systemshealth.com. If you send an email, we're literally building a call center of medical professionals across the country for any other medical stuff that you have beyond this. We're setting up this network to help. By the way, the government should be doing this, or others should be doing this, but we have to do it because no one else wants to do it. For adults, we're looking at 10,000 IU of vitamin A, 5,000 IUs per day, 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, and iodine, iodide, 6 drops versus the 3 drops. Jen, anything else? Any other comments? Questions?
Well, this might be another comment or video for another day, but a lot of people do ask about the 5G. So I don't know if you just want to.
Yeah, so look, there are people who believe, there's some research which needs to be organized about electromagnetic waves and their effect on disturbing, let's say, molecular reactions. Now, people draw these correlations that, well, when these pandemics came, it's when when we started using electricity. Now, let me tell you something. We want to be very careful when we start bringing in science, when we're actually bringing in mechanistic approaches to understanding this versus correlations. Let me tell you why. A guy like me, most guys like me who have all the degrees at MIT participate in the field, we're told to shut the hell up and not talk about mechanisms. Let me tell you the difference between mechanisms and correlation. It is very easy to manipulate people with correlations. That is what they do, okay? So, meaning people like Fauci and others who want to create fear. We have to be very careful about really applying mechanistic understanding. So everything I'm talking about is based on mechanisms, which means the diagram, for example, I shared with you here, okay, is mechanisms, okay? What you're seeing here is we actually can understand, hey, vitamin D comes in here. It causes this chemical reaction. Then this happens. Then this happens. And this happens. Then this happens. And we get these catalycidins. And then they support this. Each one of these reactions has been painstakingly figured out by aggregating knowledge. If you want to do correlation, oh, I saw this, now I see this. I could easily say that, get people hyped up, and everyone say, oh, that's great, Shiva believes 5G destroys things. It may, but it's a correlation. And what we've seen is, when people come out with new understanding, those in power sometimes put out ideas that are not mechanistically defensible yet. And then they attack people saying, look at those kooks over there. And I'm not saying this is kooky or not. It's just very much, some of you may have seen these autism, it's called ecological graphs. They have a graph of autism, and then they have a graph of, let's say, glyphosate. And some very bad scientists did that. The reality is we know there's a linkage between neuroinflammation and things in the environment, but when you do graphs like that and you don't show the mechanisms, you could easily do a graph of autism rising and the use of organic foods, okay? Or the number of people starting to buy cars, and you could say, oh, cars cause autism, or organic foods cause autism. That's why the real science occurs when we understand mechanisms. So the real issue here is we're gathering data, and what we would have to show or understand is when you manipulate electromagnetic radiation at particular frequencies, how does that affect the immune system, perhaps to compromise it? And that we need to look into. And I'm starting to organize that. However, there are people I've seen who jump from topic to topic to topic. There are people who run nonprofits. First, I'll talk about water, and then they'll make some money off that. We need to clean up the water. They'll run nice benefits. Then they'll jump to vaccines. Then they'll jump over to 5G. And it's a money-making model. And then they never let the real science occur to build the real foundation to really get to the heart of this. So what I want to say is I get a lot of calls about 5G. Just like the amount of effort I've spent on this, we're starting to organize the research, but we need to understand the mechanism. So in this case, it would be saying, okay, if a 5G electromagnetic wave came in, how would that actually disrupt these reactions to actually cause reduction, let's say, in antimicrobial activity? That's what needs to be done. And until I have that understood, what I can tell you is we need to bring that together. What I can tell you is right now, whether it's 5G or not 5G, whether it's, we're putting atrazine in the environment, whether we're putting glyphosate, there's something very tangible everyone can do to start beefing up your immune systems. Because those in power, again, don't give a damn about you. They give a damn about making money. So it's going to come to you to understand mechanisms of action, how A causes B to cause C to cause D. And the more we find that, that's the scientific method. If we don't do that and we start going to areas, the establishment is going to start attacking us. without actually mechanistic analysis. This enough is an amazing place to really get deep, to expose the establishment's false science so we can start really building an understanding and beef up our immune systems. Does that answer that, Jen? Jen? Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Next, let's see if we have another question. Hard to have controls when there's so many potential harmful things. That's a great question. Look, someone said, how do you control things when you have so many harmful things? Look, you know, I think each one of us can do some important things. I still believe in Mother Nature. You know, there's a lot of good things we can all do. There's a lot of good people in this world. There's a lot of, the minority of people actually hurt us is actually quite a small minority. And the reason they continue is because few of us are willing to start being vocal and stand up for our rights. But by and large, there's incredible hope if we use what's going on right now. This COVID coronavirus fear-mongering is an opportunity while you're in your homes to really start educating yourself and let go of the fear. If you are caught up in this fear all day long, you know, this is not advantageous to supporting, you know, immune health. I can tell you that, because your immune health, if you start getting afraid, you start increasing cortisol levels, and you start affecting your immunity. So what I'm suggesting to you is I'm here to help you really start using the scientific method to bring together understanding how A causes B to cause C to D. So what I've shared with you today is that vitamin D, which you can get from the sun, which you can get from supplements, has a very powerful effect, many effects, on antimicrobial activity. This is something very tangible. 83,000 papers have been written about it, 1,000 systematic reviews. What is reprehensible is that the medical establishment in hospitals right now is not giving it to not recommending it, quote unquote mandating it. They want to mandate vaccines, but they're not quote unquote mandating it or educating our healthcare workers, our senior citizens, or our immunocompromised. Same with vitamin A and other substances like I promote. This is reprehensible. Everything is vaccines, vaccines, vaccines. And that, if you can take away today with this video, which is out there, which will Jen, is it also going on YouTube? Jen? Jennifer? Okay, we'll restream it on YouTube. But it's on Facebook. It's here. The fundamental issue here is that you have an opportunity to take control of your own lives, overcome this nonsensical fear by really understanding that your immune system that nature gave, that God gave, is intended to be strong. And all you need to do, you know, the first thing you can do, I mean, there's many things that can occur in life, but for God's sakes, one thing you can do is sunlight, the rich vegetables, the rich fruits. And if you can't get that, well, take some vitamin D, take some vitamin A, take some vitamin C. And remember, as you age, your thyroid levels go down. The iodine and the iodide help you. This is basics, very basic. Now, you can layer on all sorts of stuff. We can talk about oregano oil, cinnamon oil. I mean, there's tons of herbs that nature has given us. But this is something, this time of quote unquote, in my view, deep state created crisis, that we should at least wake up to what we need to do to beef up our immune system. If there isn't any other questions, I'm going to sign off. But before I go, what I want to let you guys know is, in addition to being a scientist and an inventor, I've been working, I got up this morning at 4 a.m. and it'll probably hit midnight. But I want to thank everyone. I've been very open in sharing my phone number. I've been getting hundreds of calls, and it's fine. Please keep doing that. We get a lot of emails. I try to get back to them. But I am running for United States Senate, and I don't give a damn about the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. And I don't mean people in those parties. We need Democrats, Republicans, Independents all come together. And I'm running on the Republican ticket because that's the only way that I can get access to the debate stage. Last time I ran, both parties colluded against me because they're so afraid of people like you and I. They do not want ordinary people running for office. They want their lawyer, lobbyists, horrible people. So I'm running again, and forget your party lines. The issue of health, the issue of freedom, the issue of truth transcends all of that. And I don't care, again, about the GOP establishment or the Democrat establishment. In fact, I consider both of them my enemies. The only friends we have are you and I, and we need to win this election in Massachusetts because you at least need one voice like me fighting for you, one of you fighting for you, and we're running for U.S. Senate. Our campaign in Massachusetts is now becoming a national campaign. We're getting so many people supporting our campaign through volunteering, through donations. So you can go to Shiva for Senate. Let me go here to show you what you can do in a way to help yourself and help us win truth, freedom, and health. If you go to our campaign right here, shivaforsenate.com, I want to share with you that, I'm a big proponent taking a systems approach to health. shivaforsenate.com. And those of you on Instagram, you can go to it also. But if you go to shivaforsenate.com, right there, there's a big mugshot of me right there. But you'll see that if you click on this donate button, you can, by the way, you can sign up, you can be volunteers. But I hate taking money from people without giving something. I've created a really cool book called System and Revolution. With this book, you can actually learn all the principles of systems. Look, everything's a system. Your body is a system. And then I give you a tool that I wrote and created on my own. It's a piece of software where you can understand your body is a system. And you can use that tool to really understand what kind of system you are using engineering systems principles. And all of it's for $25 or more. And it's for yours to use. You can really understand what kind of body system you are. You can then understand if your body's in balance and the right foods and supplements that help you. Now, this is not to preclude your going to medical practitioners, but this is to teach you how your body is a system. Everything in the universe is a system. And what I've discovered from my research work, you can apply engineering systems principles to understand your body as a system. So the key takeaway is you have a really sort of a very unique person who's running for U.S. Senate. And in many ways, I like to say that I consider myself like one of the founders of this country. I'm not a lawyer lobbyist. Neither are you. I am a hardworking kid who came from a working class neighborhood in New Jersey. Grew up in India on a farm. And what I'm here to do is to give you back what you should have had all along, which is a knowledge of how to take care of your health. So anyone who goes to our website, Shiva for Senate, please go do that. For $25, you get an amazing electronic book. You also get, this tool to use where you can start understanding how your body is a system. So we can start really doing what we were supposed to do, which was to have a one-on-one relationship with healthcare professionals, with ourselves, to understand what foods and supplements, sun, how it really helps us. Anyway, Jen, I'm going to sign off. Is there anything else? All right. Someone said you're going to win in Massachusetts. Everyone needs to win. Republicans, Democrats, Green, Independents. Thank you, Dr. Shiva, you're a real patriot. Look, just like that person said, I drive a Ford or a Chevy. I happen to be driving this Republican. But those of you who are Democrats, Independents, when it comes to health, we have to fight for it. And that's what I'm going to do for everyone. And that's why I do these videos. No one pays me to do these videos. I have to actually run a company separately. I work for a living like every one of you does. But this is a time to win. We must use this opportunity to win truth, freedom, and health. Anyway, thank you very much. I wish you all many blessings and be well. Thank you.